Savage Dragon 73 from March of 2000. This kicks off a 3-issue run called The End of the World by Erik Larsen, and it lives up to the name. Some really fun comics here with a hell of a lot going on. So much stuff happens that it's tough to summarize everything, but loyal readers with good memories, they're rewarded as the story starts to wrap up nearly every dangling plot thread in the 8-year history of Savage Dragon. So let's get to it. Credits page, we got Larsen writing and drawing, Chris Eliopoulos letterer, colors by Rude and Motown, and keeping his palms baby soft with frequent lubrication, Josh Eckhorn. So try and keep up because we're not fucking around in this one. Do you remember the Atlantean? He was arrested back in issue 49 for leading a failed invasion of the surface world. Well, he's busting out of jail and punching his way out of his cell because he's pissed. For good reason. Remember back in issue 69? Thor and the gods raised Atlantis to the surface and took it over as their new home, kicking out the Atlanteans and killing some of them. So the Atlanteans pissed, and the guards at the prison say that he was due to be released the following day, but he apparently just could not wait. And neither can I. So I'm going to jump ahead to finish up this story here. So the Atlantean goes back home, and he gets some special horn and gives it a toot as he pleases. And the sound of the horn frightens the gods, except for Thor, of course, until he sees the sun blotted out from the sky by these gigantic sea monsters. Not just any sea monsters, but if you remember back in issue 35, the Hellboy Dragon crossover, they were eaten by one of these gigantic sea monsters, and they have a name, the Grok. And Dragon and Hellboy had to... they had to crawl out of one of these guys' asses here. They had to crawl out of the Grok's ass. And this won't be the last time that we see one of these sea creatures either, the Groks. So they were summoned, this army of Groks summoned to Atlantis to eat the gods, basically, and take over Atlantis for them. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. This issue is just chock full of one storyline after another here. Like this one. Do you remember the Johnson twins and Rita's ugly baby from issue 66? Well, those kids get kidnapped by some faceless goons here. They knock out Rita and steal her twin babies. You know, what the hell's going on? They say that their organization is in need of children. And he's referring to the Covenant of the Sword. We've been dealing with these assholes going all the way back to Super Patriot miniseries here. But keeping it brief, back in issue 67, Super Patriot broke into Covenant headquarters and discovered that his grandson was in fact this tiny version of Dark Lord. And he was going to kill the kid, but he ended up being stopped by Smasher there. And here they are now. This little shithead is using his powers here to brainwash Jennifer, turning her against her husband, the Savage Dragon, who of course believes that his wife is dead. He watched her get killed here in issue 62. You know, it's pretty complicated stuff, but while you're reading it, you know, it doesn't seem that complicated when you're in the middle of it. So, last issue, Mighty Man recruited Dragon to go help rescue Super Patriot from the Covenant of the Sword. And also last issue, this baby boom, the Energy Baby, he was kidnapped by this older version of Dark Lord from the multiverse. So now Powerhouse, the Chicken Man, and the leader of the Vicious Circle, he proposes that they work together to get their friends back. And Dragon agrees. So are you keeping up with all this? Some of this shit goes back to Freak Force in the Super Patriot miniseries, back when like Mako was working for the Covenant of the Sword. So this is rewarding fans who didn't just read Savage Dragon, but like the entire highbrow universe here. Just page after page of big swings and huge consequences. Like Bludgeon right here. He's down in the dumps, in prison, mourning the death of his brother, and he decides to give up his superpowers. So he's visited by Negate. This little bug-eyed weirdo is called Negate because he can remove superpowers, which he does here to Bludgeon, returning him to a normal-looking human. Which brings us to She-Dragon here, Amy Belcher. she's visiting Bludgeon or Charles Robinson after this procedure. And she's really pissed off that he gave his powers up, man. She does not seem like a very supportive friend because she's not the real She-Dragon. She is the duplicate Amy Belcher. We were introduced to her back in issue 71 when it turns out there were two She-Dragons. And so the real She-Dragon here kicks her butt and demands that she spills the beans about whatever her and Dark Lord are up to. But this next bit is really funny. So Dragon is going on this secret mission to rescue Super Patriot, and he doesn't know that, what will happen. So he goes to SOS headquarters just to kind of have a backup plan. And he gives Sergeant Marvel here an envelope and says to follow the instructions to a T if he doesn't hear from the Dragon in 3 days. 3 days. So Dragon hates Sergeant Marvel. He thinks he's a real blowhard, but he knows that he'll follow through if something happens to him within 3 days. So, well, Sergeant Marvel can't help himself, and he tears open the envelope as soon as Dragon makes it out the door. And the letter reads, Sergeant Marvel, you prick. I knew you couldn't wait 3 days. I'm going after the bad guys. I'm on a rescue mission. You're the hotshot detective. You figure it out. Just perfect. Love the look on his face, too. So remember that freak Negate from a couple pages ago? Well, now he gets kidnapped. People are just getting snatched up left and right in this book. But it's time for the main event. The Black Hawk Country Club in the Hamptons. This mystery woman arrives with Dragon's daughter, Angel. But not everything is as it seems. This country club is actually the Covenant of the Sword headquarters. And our new arrivals are actually Dart and Savage Dragon in disguise, or Mighty Man and Dragon. But Dart is now Mighty Man. That was last issue, so you should remember that. Anyway, they split up to cover more ground, and both of them run into some surprises here. Mighty Man runs into Super Patriot, who starts to attack them, and he's been brainwashed. Before I jump on, though, I actually want to call out some of these great sound effects. Just the whole book is always lettered, and the great sound effects by Chris Eliopoulos. You can see plenty of them here. And I'm mentioning that now because, it's an important part of the comic, especially when you see, in comparison, the sound effects that Larson does here, which are pretty weak, actually. This little snap, crackle, pop, fizzle there. Not up to the same caliber as Eliopoulos, but I never get a chance to call that out, so I wanted to mention it there. So now Dragon makes a discovery of his own. Happy Mother's Day. A room full of naked pregnant women in tubes. Freud would have a field day with this double-page spread. You got copies of Rapture and Rita and Jennifer, all pregnant. And speaking of Jennifer, here she is, man, alive and well in this final splash page. So Dragon is confused. We'll have to find out what's going on next issue. On to the letters page. Fanatics with reaction to issue 71. There's also an aspiring writer down here, Brandon Thomas, who's asking for some advice from Larson about breaking in. And it must have worked because he would end up writing for Marvel Comics, Image Comics, Skybound. So good for him. We got lots of letters followed by an ad for the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and their website, the cbldf.org, which is still operational today. I'll link to that in the description. You can sign up and get your membership card. The CBLDF is still fighting for comic creators in court 25 years later. So we've got our usual strips here. Dragonbert, Megaton Man and his wardrobe malfunctions, and Desperate Times with some more fan service. The return of Doofus. We love Doofus. That's it for this one. Some more Guerrilla Comics ads. This section 0. I never read any of these, but they were really pushing them. Next is issue 74.